Warning! Warning! The following video is intended for educational and entertainment use only. The content will include disturbing images, violent scenarios, and explicit language. This video is intended for 18 plus and older audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome everyone to Infamy Productions. In this video we'll be covering over the mob hits that occur under Nicky Scarfo's watch. We understand that when we cover over the John McCullough hit, that happened under Philip Testa when he was the mob boss allegedly. However, according to Crazy Phil Leonetti, Nicky Scarfo's nephew and future underboss, he stated that it was Nicky Scarfo's idea to really place the hit on John McCullough, especially because John McCullough was control of the labor unions that occurred around Atlantic City, and Nicky Scarfo wanted to take the reign and make the profits from it. So under Testa's ruling and approval, Nicky Scarfo's wish was granted, and therefore he's the reason why John McCullough was dead, according to Crazy Phil Leonetti's book Mafia Prince and other interviews that he's given in the past. So therefore we will include the John McCullough hit, and we will be covering over the mob hits that Nicky Scarfo did before he became mob boss and during his reign as the mob boss. So here are the mob hits that occurred during Nicky Scarfo's reign. If there's any mob hits that we missed, please let us know in the comment section down below so we can make sure we document it in future content. Thank you for your time and enjoy the content, and here's the video.
The scene today outside Miletta's restaurant in South Philadelphia, where the shooting deaths occurred, in no way betrayed the brief violence that occurred inside last night. The table for 9 guests, where 50-year-old Steve Boris and 54-year-old Jeanette Currow were shot, was still cluttered with dishes and unconsumed food. Reportedly present at the table when the shooting broke out were former disc jockey Jerry Blavat and Raymond Long John Martirano, a business associate of the late crime boss Angelo Bruno. Restaurant owner Miletta's Papa Giorgio said he saw Boris in his restaurant once before, but did not know of his connection with the so-called Greek mob or anything else about him. He said he ran from the kitchen into the dining room when he heard the shots.
I saw 2 people, one man full on blood on a rug, and the other lady next to me, full blood too. And somebody said to me, lay down, Mel, lay down. And by the time I tried to find out what, the police coming in because we call them up.
According to Papa Giorgio, police recovered 9 spent shells from the floor of the restaurant. Gino Lazzari, director of intelligence of the Pennsylvania Crime Commission, says Mrs. Currow just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But Lazzari believes Boris was killed in retaliation for the slaying of Harry Petros, another member of the Greek mob, over the Memorial Day weekend. He adds further speculation.
And the other theory could be that Boros, with his affiliation and connection with the Riccobenes and the LCN family, the old family of Angelo Bruno, may have crossed them in some dealings and was taken away.
Is it all part of a power struggle for the control of the Philadelphia crime family?
No, I don't think so. I think the control of the Philadelphia crime family as we know it will rest with the Italian element.
When reputed Philadelphia crime boss Angelo Bruno was assassinated by a shotgun blast in March 1980, the speculation was that a bloodbath would follow. Well, the speculation has turned into reality, because since that time at least 10 more have died gangland style. And the speculation continues that it's not over yet. Hank Berger, Channel 6 Action News, South Philadelphia.
We can get in this picture.
Which girl?
We can get in this picture.
To his friends, John McCullough was a warm, decent man, an heroic figure in the union-building trade movement. He brought Local 30 from virtually nothing to a 1,500-member local that now has one of the highest pay scales on the Delaware Valley labor scene. The friends say he spent as much time with charity as he did with the union. He was a supporter and fundraiser for Ed Rendell as well as Frank Rizzo. Local 30's lawyer, Bernard Katz, had lunch with McCullough on Monday.
I can state categorically, in no way, shape, or form is there any relationship of any fiber of what was his existence to organized crime.
Another 20-year friend met with McCullough and Mayor Green yesterday at City Hall.
I can't begin to even think of anybody in the world that would want to hurt that man, because there was nothing but good in him.
But during his 2 decades as boss of Local 30 of the Roofers Union, there were frequent allegations by law enforcement units and various managements that McCullough's rank and file used violence and intimidation to organize workers and to fight for contracts. The best-known example was the June 1972 riot at the Valley Forge construction site of a Sheraton hotel being built by non-union contractors, the Altimos Construction Company. 1,000 pickets reportedly rioted at the site, destroying $400,000 in equipment and materials. At other times, there were unexplained dynamite blasts and assaults. Last June, 11 Local 30 members finally went to jail in connection with those riots. McCullough was never charged in that case. McCullough had led the rough-and-tumble Roofers Union since 1959. He was widely considered a symbol of their sometimes violent nature. And while many people considered him a wonderful person, he met the same kind of violent end as did many of his associates, including Angelo Bruno. Vernon Odom, Channel 6 Action News in Winfield Heights.
If they know, they're not saying, at least for now, while Local 30 Roofers Union President John McCullough was marked for death. It was here inside his home at 2005 Foster Street in northeast Philadelphia shortly after 6 o'clock last night when a lone gunman posing as a flower delivery man gunned down the union official. McCullough's Cadillac remains in the driveway where he left it. Wife Audrey, who was in the house when her husband was shot 6 times by the gunman after he delivered 3 poinsettia plants, was not there today. Only a Philadelphia policeman stood guard. It's a quiet street, and neighbors were either not at home or declined to open doors to discuss the murder. Down the block, a Philadelphia policeman who was on sick leave had just returned to his home after the murder. I asked him whether his wife or children heard anything.
No, nothing other than the commotion after it happened, and we had gas men working on the house here. They were in and out all day, so it was kind of tough for us to hear anything with them banging and everything.
This is the van police say the gunman used. It was rented from a New Jersey leasing corporation on December 11th and was supposed to be returned the next day. It was dusted for fingerprints. The van was found here on the Jefferson Ward parking lot at the intersection of Roosevelt Boulevard and Red Lion Road. According to police, the keys were in the ignition lock, and also 2 poinsettia leaves were found inside the van. Union officials say they are at a loss to explain the murder. There is some speculation McCullough was killed over organizing control of the lucrative trade unions in Atlantic City. There is 2 distinctive sides to the late John McCullough. He was combative, tough, and shaped up Roofers Local 30 from an ineffective union to one that got a lot of respect among labor councils and one that was equally feared. He was also variously described as a compassionate man, a man with a heart of gold, who would raise funds for charities at the drop of a hat. Everybody loved him, they said, except one. Hank Sperger, Channel 6 Action News at Roofers Local 30 headquarters in northeast Philadelphia.
This is convicted hitman Willard Moran in 1982 during the trial process that led to his conviction in the 1980 murder of former Roofers Union leader John McCullough. As the district attorney's star witness in the murder conspiracy case against mob figures Raymond Martirano and Albert Didone, Moran has entered the federal witness protection program, and the government wants no pictures and further prohibits clear courtroom sketches, even though it was clear to this reporter today that Moran's facial appearance has not yet been altered. The jury heard only 15 minutes of testimony today. It was interrupted several times by lengthy maneuvering by defense attorneys who don't want the jury to know that Moran and the co-defendants have had a past association that included other criminal allegations, including drug pushing and extortion. Moran did get to describe the deal he has cut to avoid the electric chair. Full, accurate cooperation with prosecutors, and he'll get a life sentence. Anything else, and Moran will return to death row. Assistant District Attorney Barbara Christie did get Moran to say he was a friend of the defendants, and they eventually became his bosses. As for the past criminal allegations, Judge Paul Ribner will analyze the issue over the weekend. The prosecutors say Didone and Martirano put out the contract on McCullough because of union rivalries in Atlantic City. When the trial resumes on Monday, Willard Moran will be back on the stand. Second day on the stand is the District Attorney's star witness in the McCullough murder, Willard Moran, the man already convicted of shooting and killing former Roofers Union boss John McCullough in 1980, described how he met and went into drug pushing with alleged mob figures Raymond Martirano and Albert Didone, the men he now accuses of ordering and paying for the McCullough murder. Moran has cut a deal with the government, a life sentence in exchange for his testimony. We are not allowed to show sketches of Moran's face. Moran described a fall 1980 breakfast meeting in a Cherry Hill restaurant where Didone pointed out a man he would eventually know as John McCullough. "I want you to remember his face," Moran quotes Didone as saying. Moments later, a mistrial was almost declared by Judge Paul Ribner. Moran said he asked Didone if former Bartenders Union leader Ed McBride was the target of a contract killing that Moran sensed was coming. He quoted Didone as saying, "No, not Eddie." Raymond, referring to co-defendant Martirano, and the little guy, Nicky Scarfo. Moran was cut off by defense attorney Emmett Fitzpatrick, who moved for a mistrial, claiming the mention of other reputed mob figures not directly involved in this murder case was a way of inflaming the jury. Judge Ribner agreed. He chastised the assistant district attorney, but denied the mistrial request. The proceedings were recessed for the day. Moran will be on the stand again tomorrow to begin his version of the actual McCullough murder plot.
Just one man.
Welcome everyone to Ifley Productions. In this video we'll be covering over the Nicky Scarfo, Harry the Hunchback Riccobene War and the mob hits that came with it. For those who are not familiar, the Nicky Scarfo and Harry the Hunchback Riccobene War took place between the year of 1982 to 1984. It was one of the most bloodiest internal wars in the Philadelphia Mafia history. It began after Nicodemo, Lil Nicky Scarfo, became the boss and demanded the longtime independent capo, Harry the Hunchback Riccobene, recognizing his authority and paid tribute. Riccobene refused, and the shooting war began, to be simply put. Among those hits we will cover are many of them that we can cover based on the historical timeline. The first one that's pretty much initiated the war was Frank Monte, Nicky Scarfo's consigliere, that took place on May 13, 1982. Riccobene had drawn first blood, Monte had lost his life, and therefore this had pretty much started the basis of it. His new boss was Philip Chicken Man Testa, who was Angelo Bruno's successor, but Chicken Man will be killed in an explosion from a bomb that was placed under his porch. Philip Testa was killed less than a year since Bruno's death. The Philadelphia crime family loses two godfathers less than 2 years. Therefore, the commission, the bosses of the 5 families in New York, will honor and choose Nicky Scarfo as the godfather of Philadelphia. Little Nicky Scarfo would reach the pinnacle of his career. Everyone knew the more powerful Nicky Scarfo became, the more paranoid and destructive he would be amongst anyone who crossed paths, including his own son, Mark Scarfo, be to recruit him into the Mafia. However, Mark Scarfo will refuse his father's offers, which would rub Nicky Scarfo the wrong way, but he had bigger fish to fry. Nicky Scarfo and his entourage would improvise a street tax to all criminals to pay a percentage of their earnings to the Scarfo crime family for running any illegal activities. If anyone refused to pay Scarfo's entourage, they would be marked for death. Nicky Scarfo would make the sign of a gun. He would shape his hand like a gun as a calling card to notify his entourage that someone was marked for death, and they would take care of it. Therefore, Nicky Scarfo would lead his entourage into a killing spree. He enjoyed the headlines of the victims he wanted to kill. He enjoyed to smile in front of the cameras while being arrested, and he immersed fear into the criminal underworld. On the other hand, not everyone shared his vision. His own criminal family feared him, along with his own biological family. Mark Scarfo would see his father get arrested numerous times. He would be teased again due to all the negative publicity. He would see and hear all the tragic stories that would surround him and his family. His father would publicly go to war with his arch nemesis, Harry the Hunchback Riccobene, because he refused to pay the street tax. Therefore, Scarfo made the sign of the gun for his men to mark Harry Riccobene for death. Nicky Scarfo and Harry the Hunchback were both incarcerated for other criminal charges. Therefore, the leaders will orchestrate their war behind bars. Scarfo would travel to Philadelphia and meet with the captains left over from the Bruno and Testa regimes to discuss the family's new hierarchy. Nicky Scarfo would name his close friend Salvatore Chucky Molino as his new underboss, and Testa loyalist Frank Monte to the post of consigliere. Me, Chucky, and Lawrence were the only ones who knew what Pete Casella had told the Chin. This is Vincent the Chin Gigante. About the plot to kill Phil Testa. My uncle was afraid if Salvi knew, who was Philip the Chicken Man Testa's son, if Salvi knew, or even Frank Monte, they would kill Chicky Narducci immediately. My uncle says, we're gonna kill him. We're just gonna not kill him yet. Scarfo decided to send his consigliere Frank Monte and the treacherous Raymond Long John Mortaround to see Harry's younger brother, Mario, Sonny Riccobene. Within the order from Scarfo that Sonny helped in setting up to his brother to be killed, the move backfired. Instead of joining the assault against his brother, Sonny Riccobene went to his brother and warned him of the pending plot to kill him, and who was involved. The Hunchback's response was loud and left little doubt that he was no more willing to go toe-to-toe with little Nicky. Now we're going to show you another way the story's been told, and this is from George Anastasia's point of view. So please understand that this may be a little redundant, but here's a little bit of different depths of how George Anastasia builds the story. According to George Anastasia's Blood and Honor book, Scarfo, whose connections in Atlantic City had helped forge allies with members of the powerful Genovese and Gambino crime families in New York, had outmaneuvered Casella and Narducci. By the end of March 1981, word once came down to the Philadelphia from New York, Nicodemo, Little Nicky Scarfo, was the new boss. Scarfo named Salvatore Molino his underboss, and Frank Monte was appointed consigliere. For those who may not be familiar about the hierarchical structure, many people pay attention to the mob boss, who is the #1 position. the underboss is the number 2 position, and the third boss is the consigliere. While consigliere may be positioned at number 3, they themselves are known for giving more advice to the main boss, number 1, than the actual number 2. They serve a very pivotal role and have ways of trying to convince the serving boss of what their advice is, or other people in lower rankings. That is the position of the consigliere, whereas the underboss is like the vice president. They're just a sitting position to wait their turn if they ever need to appoint or step in as the new boss for a temporary or permanent time. In April, after several attempts to ambush Harry Riccobene had failed, Scarfo decided on a more insidious form of treachery, and he sent his consigliere Frank Monte and Raymond Long John Mortorano, then a suspect in the John McCullough murder, to see if Harry's half-brother Mario Sonny Riccobene. Mario knew Long John. They both were in the methamphetamine business. What Mortorano and Monte proposed was that Mario to set up his half-brother up. Mario listened, and he said he'd get back to them. And then when he went back to his brother Harry, and that said Nick the Crow Caramondi, was what forced the Riccobene War out in the open. For the next year and a half would rage on the streets of South Philadelphia. Harry Riccobene had been cautious and suspicious of Scarfo. He had hoped to avoid open warfare. It was only after Monte and Mortorano tried to co-opt his brother and Riccobene decided to act. Once Mario Riccobene was approached, he had just 2 options. He could either set up his brother, or, like his brother, he could become a target. At this point, Scarfo had backed the Riccobenes into a corner. It's them or us, Harry Riccobene told his brother. It's either kill or be killed. Let's get them before they get us. Mario Riccobene's answer was delivered to Frank Monte, a service station in southwest Philadelphia, on May 13th, by Joseph Padula and Victor DeLuca, 2 Riccobene associates. Padula was lying in ambush in a camper mounted on the back of a small pickup truck. The truck was parked across the street from the service station where Monte had left his car. Padula had a .22 caliber rifle with a telescope sight. DeLuca and another associate waited in a bar nearby. Shortly after 9 p.m., Monte showed up in his car. Padula got him in his sight and squeezed the trigger, and squeezed again, and squeezed again, and squeezed again. Monte, 49, was shot 5 times in the back and head. There were also bullet wounds in his left hand, right arm, and upper right arm. The mob consigliere had $600 in cash in his pocket when police found him lying semi-conscious in the streets near the gas station at 9:30 that night. He was pronounced dead a half hour later. Monte's name was near the top of that hit list drawn up by the Riccobenes after Mario was approached that spring and asked to set up his brother. The Riccobenes, in turn, were on top of that list prepared by Scarfo and his henchmen. For the rest of 1982 and all of 1983, squads of gunmen cruised through the streets of South Philadelphia looking for targets. Welcome everyone to Infinitely Productions, and in this video we'll be covering the failed mob hits towards Harry the Hunchback Riccobene. And the war was on. The Scarfo family also wanted to act it too by cutting the head off a snake, so therefore Harry Riccobene was also targeted for these bloody shootings. Here's from the Philadelphia Daily News article that occurred on June 1982. Wednesday, June 9, 1982, Philadelphia Daily News, page 3. Riccobene survives mob hit Harry Hunchback Riccobene. At 71, one of the oldest surviving members of the late Angelo Bruno's crime family, again has proved himself to be a survivor. Hit by 2 bullets and grazed by 2 others last night on a southwest Philadelphia street corner, the stooped 5-foot-tall Riccobene still was able to struggle with his young assailant and force him to flee. Job undone. Today he was listed as a guarded but stable condition at the Fitzgerald Mercy Division of Mercy Catholic Medical Center. A spokeswoman there said he was alert and oriented. Police called the shooting a planned hit, similar to the assassination of Angelo Bruno and 14 others mob-related persons since March of 1980. The only difference is that this attempt failed. To back up this theory on the assault, police know that Riccobene had been carrying $1,400 but had not been robbed. They said the aging mob figure had told them that the gunman simply had walked up to him and had started shooting, but police said Riccobene told them nothing more except to say he did not recognize the man, who described by O'Keefe witness as being in his early 20s, 5'11", 165 pounds with stringly hair. He said that to be wearing dark pants and rusty colored jacket. Sage Bean phone police apparently was also called in shortly, though noted happened after the 11th of the each making gunman Rico night from a street side booth outside a drugstore of a 74th Street and Boys Island Avenue. The location is a block and a half away from Riccobene's home on Plover Street near Boist. Riccobene had just made his phone call and was leaving the phone booth when the gunman had approached. Riccobene told police that he had ducked the first shot, which had grazed his scalp. He had been hit by others in the chest and elbow. Another grazed his right anklet, and fifth apparently missed. Police said the .38 caliber snub-nosed revolver used by the gunman carried only 5 bullets. 2 off-duty police officers and a firefighter driving past the scene saw Riccobene struggling with the gunman after the weapon had emptied. They said the young man surely gave up the struggle, dropped the gun, and fled west on Boyce before disappearing into the alley. Riccobene, still on his feet, picked up the gun and pointed at the police officers and the firefighters, as continued on page 16, Legacy of Blood, Philadelphia Home. On March 15, 1981, Philip Testa, undisputed leader of the Philadelphia mob after Bruno's death, blown apart by a bomb hidden on the porch of his South Philadelphia home. May 26, 1981, Harry Petros, 53, known to have connections to the Philadelphia mob, found in the trunk of his gold Cadillac on the east. Police walks behind Harry Riccobene's car, in which he, the reputed mobster, left his glasses. Prison marked life on the side by Kathy Sheehan. Harry Hunchback Riccobene has been portrayed as an old sage of a local mob, the man heard on the secret tape made by law enforcement officials in 1977 advising the other crime family members how to choose a new consigliere. Andrew Brewer, then the boss, needed his new counselor, and Nicky Scarfo, Frank Narducci, Philip Tester weren't sure how to vote. Well, you sit back and see where the votes lay, Riccobene told them during a meeting at the Tyrone Denise talent agencies of Broad Street near Tasker. First they asked, who's in favor? You raising your hand, right? If you see the majority of the hands going up well up in the corner, Riccobene told them. Riccobene, identified by the police commission as a high-ranking member of the Philadelphia mob, is seen as a man who takes time from the numbers, operations, and loan sharking business to parcel out advice to young members who are less wise to the way of the family. Riccobene, 71 on Plover Street in southwest Philadelphia, has spent most of his adult life in jail and was one to be sentenced June 25th in the most recent conviction of racketeering and gambling. Those charges, of which he and 5 other mobsters. The shooting of Harry Riccobene is viewed as another series of violent acts arising from the underworld battle for the control of the Philadelphia crime family, touched off by the March 21st, 1980 assassination of crime boss Angelo Bruno. The people following have been slain. April 18, 1980, Antonio, photographed by Dennis Old Figures, were convicted, carrying a maximum penalty of 25 years in prison. He has also been convicted in the past of selling stolen U.S. Treasury bonds and was found guilty 5 times on narcotics charges since 1949. A close associate of Bruno, he was one of the few leaders of Bruno's family who dealt openly in drugs while Bruno was alive. On one of the drug charges, city and federal authorities pursued him across Italy and South America before arresting him during a drug raid in Cleveland in 1956. He was paroled in March 1975 after serving 4 years of stolen bonds charge, but he was ordered back in jail in 1978 when the parole commission had said he was violated by his parole associated with known criminals at the time. Riccobene complained he didn't have anyone else to talk to. I have too many friends. I'm born and raised in the area, about 90%. Pretty near criminal records. You run into every 1 minute of every day. I can very well shun anyone. I wouldn't be able to do anything, he said. And that's how we're going to leave the article when it comes to the attack on Harry Riccobene from the Philadelphia Daily News. We will also let you hear from Harry Riccobene himself going over the assailant that assaulted him from this documentary from Bill Curtis. And the man who was behind that first mob hit was Salvatore Wayne Grande, seen here.
Now it was time to follow through on their threats and wipe out the faction led by Harry Riccobene once and for all.
When Scarfo took over, he didn't care what happened, where it happened, or who it happened to.
Scarfo viewed Harry as a threat to his leadership, and started off by asking Harry's brother to set him up for the murder.
Scarfo sent his number 2 man, consigliere Frank Monti, to talk to Sonny Riccobene. Everyone in Philadelphia knew that Harry the Hunchback and his brother Sonny had problems getting along, and Sonny was in an ideal position to eliminate the Hunchback. But Sonny turned out to be a bad bet. Not only did he refuse, he told his brother Harry about the plan to double-cross him.
I was surprised that they would even try that. And, well, I got together with my friends and planned what to do.
So Harry killed the messenger. He killed the consigliere.
Scarfo's number 2, Frank Monti, was gunned down by a young Riccobene associate. It was the first fatality in the war. Scarfo was furious. He wanted Harry the Hunchback dead. The word went out. Any and all Scarfo soldiers had standing orders to wipe out the Riccobene gang if they could.
Once the order is out that this guy's got to go, it could take a day, it could take a month, it could take a year, but he's going to get killed.
Finally, in June, they got a shot at him.
I was in the phone booth making a phone call, and I saw from a distance a rather shabby-looking guy walking along towards the phone.
The shabby-looking guy was a Scarfo associate, 24-year-old Salvatore Wayne Grande.
I knew it was something wrong. You could sense it. He came right to the phone booth. His arms start coming up with a pistol in his hand. Well, I saw that, and I jumped on him. I grabbed one hand with one hand. I grabbed him, one hand, I grabbed the arm with the pistol. And he shot me, and he hit me in here. The first shot.
The bullet didn't slow Harry down. Instead, the older man grabbed for the hitman's gun.
By that time, we were tussling. Not that I'm a strong man or a big man, but I did all right. I set him back a few steps, and he shot again and missed. I grabbed him again. I took the gun off him. Well, lucky for him, it was empty. But not knowing it, I went to, you son of a bitch.
At that point, Grande ran. Harry was hospitalized for his wounds, but survived. 2 months later, the Scarfo hitmen struck again.
I was parked in the car waiting for a party, and I heard footsteps. So I looked around and I see another guy. He's got a mask on. I said, maybe this is it. And as he brought the gun up, I ducked under the dashboard. He shot the windows, but nothing happened. He just shattered the windows, and he ran.
It was really kind of a game of, it was, you know, when you're a kid and you're playing cops and robbers. I mean, these guys were out there looking for each other, trying to set each other up, and out to kill each other.
They stopped stalking, because then they knew that I was ready for them. In fact, I used to go out alone, hoping they would show up, but they never did.
Welcome to Infinitely Productions. In the meantime, we are going to be covering this mob hit shooting on Salvatore Salvi Testa that occurred on July 31st, 1982. Now we'll be covering over one of the stories that kind of gets glosses over since many people don't talk about it. We will release a full documentary on the young mobster. As of now, we will cover only the assassination attempt that occurred on that specific date. July 31st, 1982, on 9th and Cafford Street, not too far from Testa's home, he was sitting down minding his business and eating clams near the pizza shop at the Italian markets. Around 5 p.m. on a sunny Saturday, Testa was enjoying his meal until a van pulls up near his location. Inside the van were two armed men ready to settle score with the Crown Prince of Philadelphia. They shot him at point-blank range in a drive-by shooting. Riccobene's brothers Mario and Robert Riccobene will help participate in this war, and also these two assailants, Joseph Padula and Victor DeLuca, would take the reins on going after Salvatore Testa since he aligned himself with Nicky Scarfo, as you can see in this footage.
Only 3 of the alleged co-conspirators were in court today. Alleged La Casa Nostra faction leader Harry Riccobene, plus Vincent Isabella and Joseph Casdia. Victor DeLuca remains at Graterford Prison for other crimes. Mario Riccobene is in a Connecticut prison. They'll all be brought in late April when the preliminary hearing finally comes off. Judge Mitchell Lipschutz continued the case because of the 2 absent defendants and the questions about possible conflicts of interest for defense lawyer Charles Peruto Jr., who now represents Harry Riccobene, but who in the past did some defense work for the DA's star witness, Joseph Padula, the convicted organized crime triggerman who has turned informant. Padula is ready to finger the other defendants in all of this with conspiracy or attempting to murder at least 5 of Philadelphia's top reputed mob figures, including Nicodemo Scarfo and Salvatore Testa. In May 1982, Frank Monti, a leading mob figure, was murdered. Salvatore Testa was critically wounded in the summer of '82. Assistant District Attorney Arnold Gordon outlined the case they plan to prove.
In connection with that conspiracy, they surveilled the movements of Frank Monti and Raymond Martirano, that Isabella supplied the men with a .45 caliber machine gun, 22 caliber rifle with a scope, other guns, that on the day of Frank Monti's killing, Monti was watched by Harry Riccobene, Joseph Casdia, Victor DeLuca, and Joseph Padula, and that eventually Padula shot Monti about 8 times as he returned to his automobile. That Casdia drove the camper from which Padula had shot away from the scene of the shooting.
He is pleading not guilty, he is not guilty, and a time will come when all of that will out.
You don't believe Padula can finger him?
It's my belief that Padula is intending to do that. Whether or not a jury will believe Padula is the important factor here to be considered.
The explosive testimony of mob hitman Joseph Padula is now due to be heard in open court on April 24th. At that time, all the defendants will be in court to face their accuser, who was once their alleged co-conspirator and triggerman. Vernon Odom, Channel 6 Action News at City Hall.
As you can see in this photo, Salvatore Testa was seriously wounded. He was shot 8 times, and as you can see, his arm is severely injured. He almost lost that arm, and he had several injuries that occurred in his body as a result of that shooting that occurred on July 31st, 1982. This was a bloody bloodbath that occurred in the streets of South Philadelphia. Frank Monti, who was Scarfo's consigliere of the Philadelphia crime family, will lose his life in a gas station from a shooting that occurred from Joseph Padula and Victor DeLuca. Unlike Testa, Monti lost his life as a result of that gunfire, and therefore the war within the Philadelphia crime family was on in the early 1980s. Meanwhile, while Testa was fighting for his life, he was in the hospital, and his long-loved interest, Rosina Rucci, had accompanied him. However, by the time she tried to visit him in the hospital, Testa was already accompanied by his sister Maria in the hospital. Rosina Rucci had a very personal secret that she wanted to share with Testa. However, since he was already battling his injuries and Rosina had a strange relationship with his sister, she decided to keep this personal secret to herself and therefore never got a chance to really tell Testa about a real personal secret that she would like to share with him. We would like to really reveal that secret in this video. We encourage you to buy her book, 6,000 Days by Rosina Rucci, so you can hear from her own personal story about how her relationship was like to be with Salvatore Testa. In the meantime, this is what happened on July 31st of 1982 on the assassination attempt of Salvatore Testa. We'll be covering other different assassination attempts that he experienced, and we hope you stay tuned for more of our content. If there's any recommendations that you have in mind, please let us know in the comments below, and we'd be happy to hear from you. This is Ifly Productions. Stay tuned.
Philadelphia police turned their attention today to finding the murder weapon that ended the criminal career of Pasquale "Pat the Cat" Spirito. They were out searching the rooftops near the murder scene at 11th and Mifflin in South Philadelphia. And then they began a fishing expedition of sorts, searching out about 20 sewer drains with a 75-pound magnet. But the weapon was not among the cans and other debris. The 43-year-old Spirito was found shot to death while sitting in the driver's seat of a silver Cadillac last night. Detectives say it looks like a professional job.
The deceased pulled up to 11th and Mifflin. Two males were seen exiting his vehicle and opened fire on him.
Do you have any description at all on the suspects?
Yeah, we have two white males, approximately 40 years of age, well-dressed.
Local residents were out in full force today, but those we talked to said they didn't see nor hear anything.
Did you hear anything last night?
No.
Nothing at all?
Until the sirens came. That's how I ran.
Nothing at all. I didn't hear nothing.
When did you first find out about it?
About 10:30.
Did you hear anything?
No, I didn't hear any gunshots.
Did you see anybody running from the car?
No.
Pasquale Spirito was no stranger to police nor to organized crime. In fact, he's listed in the 1983 report of the Pennsylvania Crime Commission as an active member of the Philadelphia La Cosa Nostra.
Spirito is listed as a soldier in the crime family of Nicky Scarfo and a close associate of underworld boss Harry the Hunchback Riccobene. He was convicted of racketeering in June of last year and was free on bond pending an appeal. So the question for law enforcement now is whether the shooting was an isolated incident or if we'll be seeing renewed violence among the underworld in Philadelphia. Action News reporter Vernon Odom has more on the state of organized crime in the Delaware Valley.
Scarfo put contracts out on 70-year-old Harry the Hunchback and Harry's younger brothers, Sonny and Bobby. The boss made it clear that any of his soldiers should consider it their duty to rub out the troublesome Riccobene brothers. Nicky the Crow and a few of his mob associates took up the challenge, not for money, but for the chance it might offer them to advance within the crime family.
You never get paid. There's no such thing as being paid for a hit. There's no such thing as outsiders that we hire to kill somebody. And for 2 years, all we did was just hunt people to kill them.
Nicky the Crow's immediate superior was Pat the Cat Spirito, a veteran Scarfo soldier. Pat the Cat and Nicky the Crow, along with fellow hitman Charles Iadich, began plotting the murder of Sonny Riccobene, but the plotting began to run into problems. Every time the hit squad was ready to go kill Sonny, Pat the Cat would call it off. Nicky the Crow began to believe that Pat was dragging his feet. he was right.
Pat gets drunk and starts talking treason. And he starts saying, hey, Scarfo's no good. These guys are no good. All they want you to do is kill, 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 kill. That's all we have to do is kill, kill, kill. I look at my partner. I say, hey, this guy's talking treason here. I don't want to hear this.
Now Nicky the Crow and his partner Charlie began to fear for their own lives. Scarfo was waiting for them to kill Sonny Riccobene, and the job wasn't getting done. They decided to go over Spirito's head and reported his treasonous talk to his boss, Salvatore Merlino.
He says, you see, Pat, it's this. Take care of it. It's a good thing you guys come here, because you guys were in a lot of trouble. That means this when he means trouble.
Now Nicky the Crow had to turn his gun on his mentor, Pat Spirito. It was kill or be killed. Nicky and his partner Charlie devised a scheme to hit Spirito. They would murder him during one of their planning sessions for the Sonny Riccobene hit.
I was going to put a small 25 in my pocket, so Pat couldn't see it, in my back pocket. I would be waiting outside my apartment house for him to pick me up and jump right in the car, the front seat. We would then go pick Charlie up.
Nick Caramondi and Charlie Ian each told Pat they needed to drop off some loan shark money at this corner. When Pat pulled the car to the curb, they would shoot him and run to a getaway car. But there was a glitch in the plan.
As we're going to the rendezvous point, where we're going to do it at, some lady trying to park a car and all kind of cars back up behind us. Charlie gets nervous. I'm nervous. We get to a corner. It's 4 corners. You got cars running north. You got cars running east. Charlie says, pull over here. Pat pulls over. He looks at me. I look at him. Now I'm waiting for Charlie. I got my hand on the door. All of a sudden, bang, and it made a hell of a noise. And Pat goes like this. Right, like his head leans right to me. And Charlie pumps another one. Bang.
Pat the Cat was dead. Now the 2 hitmen had to make their escape into crowded traffic, swarming with potential eyewitnesses. family. Cops and reporters were starting to refer to Scarfo's men as the gang that couldn't shoot straight. Scarfo's famous temper was rising out of control.
He wanted these guys dead.
So he handpicked the target that would hurt Harry the Hunchback the most, his brother, Bobby Riccobene. This time there was no margin for error.
There was like 4 teams that went out. There was like 3, 4 guys on each team.
One team was headed by Scarfo soldier Fafi Einarella. He hunted down Bobby Riccobene on the street.
Now what Fafi does, he gets the shotgun, he walks up the street, and he's laying, he's ducking. You know, here comes Bobby and his mother. Fafi starts running toward them. The mother starts screaming.
She grabbed the gun and, you know, she tussled with him.
He butts her with the gun. Bobby starts running. He's pretty chubby, chunky, and he's jumping over the fence. And Fafi shot him with the shotgun.
Bobby Riccobene died on the sidewalk in front of his mother.
I never dreamt of that. They killed one of my brothers, another brother of mine.
They said that's enough. After Robert got killed, Robert Riccobene got killed, they said that's enough.
Harry the Hunchback surrendered his territory to Nicky Scarfo. The war was over, for now. Family. Cops and reporters were starting to refer to Scarfo's men as the gang that couldn't shoot straight. Scarfo's famous temper was rising out of control.
He wanted these guys dead.
So he handpicked the target that would hurt Harry the Hunchback the most, his brother, Bobby Riccobene. This time there was no margin for error.
There was like 4 teams that went out. There was like 3, 4 guys on each team.
One team was headed by Scarfo soldier Fafi Einarella. He hunted down Bobby Riccobene on the street.
Now what Fafi does, he gets the shotgun, he walks up the street, and he's laying, he's ducking. You know, here comes Bobby and his mother. Fafi starts running toward them. The mother starts screaming.
She grabbed the gun and, you know, she tussled with him.
He butts her with the gun. Bobby starts running. He's pretty chubby, chunky, and he's jumping over the fence. And Fafi shot him with the shotgun.
Bobby Riccobene died on the sidewalk in front of his mother.
I never dreamt of that. They killed one of my brothers, another brother of mine.
They said that's enough. After Robert got killed, Robert Riccobene got killed, they said that's enough.
Harry the Hunchback surrendered his territory to Nicky Scarfo.
Driver hadn't gotten in yet.
Philadelphia homicide detectives say Robert Riccobene was bringing his mother home from a shopping trip at about 10 o'clock last night. 73-year-old Jean Riccobene is Harry the Hunchback Riccobene's stepmother and was living in Harry's southwest Philadelphia home while he serves time in a federal prison on a racketeering conviction. As Jean Riccobene and her son Robert got out of this blue car last night, police say the Riccobenes saw 2 men approach them with a sawed-off shotgun. The Riccobenes apparently tried to flee, but the gunman caught up with them in a next-door neighbor's backyard. At that point, neighbors tell me they heard a shot ring out. Dolores Pisano tells me she came outside when she heard Jean Riccobene's screams.
I said to her, "Can I help you in any way?" And she says, "No, my son, he's shot. And then I heard her say to the policeman then finally came, and she said to the police, "Please help me." She says, I tried to catch him. I stopped him from shooting him, but he wouldn't stop. He just shot him anyhow, dropped the gun and ran.
Officials say Robert Riccobene was shot at close range in the back of the head. His mother was slightly injured when the butt of the shotgun hit her in the face. Investigators believe this is just one more incident in the mob war that began when Angelo Bruno was murdered. Certain law enforcement officials tell Action News this hit was not unexpected. Riccobene was warned, in fact, that his life was in danger. I'm Robin Garrison.
Only 3 of the alleged co-conspirators were in court today. Alleged La Casa Nostra faction leader Harry Riccobene, plus Vincent Isabella and Joseph Casdilla. Victor DeLuca remains at Greatersburg Prison for other crimes. Mario Riccobene is in a Connecticut prison. They'll all be brought in late April when the preliminary hearing finally comes off. Judge Mitchell Lipschutz continued the case because of the 2 absent defendants and the questions about possible conflicts of interest for defense lawyer Charles Peruto Jr., who now represents Harry Riccobene, but who in the past did some defense work for the DA's star witness, Joseph Padula, the convicted organized crime triggerman who has turned informant. Padula is ready to finger the other defendants in all of this with conspiracy or attempting to murder at least 5 of Philadelphia's top reputed mob figures, including Nicky Scarfo and Salvatore Testa. In May 1982, Frank Monti, a leading mob figure, was murdered. Salvatore Testa was critically wounded in the summer of '82. Assistant District Attorney Arnold Gordon outlined the case they plan to prove.
In connection with that conspiracy, they surveilled the movements of Frank Monti and Raymond Martirano, that Isabella supplied the men with a .45 caliber machine gun, 22 caliber rifle with a scope, other guns, that on the day of Frank Monti's killing, Monti was watched by Harry Riccobene, Joseph Casdilla, Victor DeLuca, and Joseph Padula, and that eventually Padula shot Monti about 8 times as he returned to his automobile. That Casdilla drove the camper from which Padula had shot away from the scene of the shooting.
He is pleading not guilty, he is not guilty, and a time will come when all of that will out.
You don't believe Padula can finger him?
It's my belief that Padula is intending to do that. Whether or not a jury will believe Padula is the important factor here to be considered.
The explosive testimony of mob hitman Joseph Padula is now due to be heard in open court on April 24th. At that time, all the defendants will be in court to face their accuser, who was once their alleged co-conspirator and triggerman. Vernon Odom, Channel 6 Action News at City Hall.
Everybody was holding everybody up the other night. Saturday night. You got 4.
Can't believe it, man.
When we went to the back, we saw her trying to grab at the figure that was on the ground, versus I guess her son or whatever it was, and we could see looking in the yard beside it, broken off shotgun.
Sawed-off shotgun.
Sawed-off shotgun.
Driver hadn't gotten in yet.
Philadelphia homicide detectives say Robert Riccobene was bringing his mother home from a shopping trip at about 10 o'clock last night. 73-year-old Jean Riccobene is Harry the Hunchback Riccobene's stepmother and was living in Harry's southwest Philadelphia home while he serves time in a federal prison on a racketeering conviction. As Jean Riccobene and her son Robert got out of this blue car last night, police say the Riccobenes saw 2 men approach them with a sawed-off shotgun. The Riccobenes apparently tried to flee, but the gunman caught up with them in a next-door neighbor's backyard. At that point, neighbors tell me they heard a shot ring out. Dolores Pisano tells me she came outside when she heard Jean Riccobene's screams.
I said to her, "Can I help you in any way?" And she says, "No, my son, he shot. And then I heard her say to the policeman then finally came, and she said to the police, "Please help me." She says, I tried to catch him. I stopped him from shooting him, but he wouldn't stop. He just shot him anyhow, dropped the gun and ran.
Officials say Robert Riccobene was shot at close range in the back of the head. His mother was slightly injured when the butt of the shotgun hit her in the face. Investigators believe this is just one more incident in the mob war that began when Angelo Bruno was murdered. Certain law enforcement officials tell Action News this hit was not unexpected. Riccobene was warned, in fact, that his life was in danger. I'm Robin Garrison.
This is the story of Enrico Riccobene, also known as Ricky Riccobene. There's not that much documentation of Enrico Riccobene. However, based on our sources, we will go over as much as we can based on his life. Enrico Riccobene was the beloved son of Mario and Angelina Riccobene. He had a sister named Karen. He also had an uncle named Robert Riccobene and grew up in the South Philadelphia region. And a lot of his family relatives, the ones that we mentioned, especially the men, were reported mobsters in the Philadelphia community. Therefore, the Riccobene family had several ties to many different mobsters throughout several decades, especially with Harry the Hunchback and Robert Riccobene. Enrico Riccobene, as you can see, this is one of the only few photos we were able to obtain of him. As you can see, he has the similar look of the Hollywood actor from Back to the Future, Crispin Glover, with the very long hair, as you can see from the photo comparisons. We don't have much description of his personality, but we'll go over it as much depth and detail as possible. He was a young entrepreneur and had his own business in the Jeweler Rose down in the center city of Philadelphia. But unfortunately, he will have a very tragic fate as a result of the whole Philadelphia crime family era, as we'll go over the whole backstory between the Scarfo and Riccobene faction. Enrico Riccobene owned his own jewelry store in Jewelers Row in Philadelphia, and he had nothing to do with the Mafia. However, he carried the name Riccobene, and therefore he was targeted behind enemy lines. Mark's uncle Philip Leonetti, Salvatore Salvi Testa, and Lawrence Molino arrived at Jewelers Row. It was around Christmas time, and Leonetti was looking for a watch for his girlfriend. The gang would notice that Enrico Riccobene was running one of the jewelry stores. Enrico Riccobene made sure that the doors were locked so that customers needed to be buzzed in to get accessed. When Leonetti and Testa tapped onto the window, Enrico Riccobene realized who these Mafia soldiers were, and he panicked. The street soldiers would glare through the window and continuously banged on the door. For this reason, Enrico walked to the back of the store where he could not be seen. He saw and picked up a loaded gun. At this moment, Enrico Riccobene refuses to point the gun at the gang members. Instead, he points the gun at his own head and he shot himself. He died on the scene. The tragic death of Enrico Riccobene would send shockwaves to the Riccobene family and the world that was watching, including Mark Scarfo, based on the news you will see here.
Enrico Riccobene killed himself right after he saw Philip staring at him through a store window. And when Pat the Cat failed to show up for a hit, Nicky made sure Pat took the fall and...
Jewelers Row was bustling with holiday business today, but merchants on the block remained jumpy. This closed jewelry store was a reminder of yesterday's suicide by 27-year-old Enrico Riccobene, the nephew of reputed mob figure Harry Riccobene, whose faction is currently at war with other segments of South Philadelphia's trigger-happy underworld. Police sources tell me that Enrico, who owned this store, the place where he shot himself yesterday afternoon, had no apparent business connections with the crime syndicate. But police sources tell me Enrico was frightened and had been told by lawmen as well as mob figures that he was a potential target for a hit. Just 9 days ago, his uncle Robert Riccobene, known by police to be involved in mob gambling activities, was assassinated. Enrico Riccobene's father, Mario, and Mario's brother, Harry, are in prison now. And though Enrico is said to be clean, his bloodline apparently made him a marked man. Few merchants would talk about the latest Riccobene to die.
He seemed like a gentleman and a young man minding his own business, and that's all I can say at this time. I don't want to say too much more.
The theory by authorities is this guy was intimidated to death, that he operated a clean business.
I wouldn't know anything about his business.
Police are certain that the pressure, stress, and danger of being a Riccobene these days was too much for Enrico, even if his business was not the business that made other members of his family so infamous. Vernon Odom, Channel 6 Action News, on Jewelers Row.
Harry Riccobene was very devastated, distraught, and depressed over the news of his nephew and other members, including his own brother, Robert Riccobene. His raw emotions caused and convinced him to surrender to what would be Harold Riccobene's assets and lucrative operations. Around this time, Scarfo was elated about the tragedies and was being released from prison, as you can see here. He was free, lucrative, and a cheerful man. However, in the life of the mob, happiness is very short-lived. As a result of the tragedy, Enrico Anthony Riccobene lost his life at the age of 27. We will also show you his obituary that's been listed on the reported news from the Philadelphia Inquirer. And as we also mentioned, Nicky Scarfo's son, Mark Scarfo, will share a similar fate like Enrico Riccobene. He too, who also dealt with the pressures of being affiliated with the mobsters, tried to take his own life. He did survive, however, he was in a coma for the rest of his life and would tragically lose it in the most recent years and never get out of his coma until he succumbed to his injuries. Therefore, this will also lead a tragic story of those taking their own lives, even though they were not part of the whole mafia. It goes to show you how tragic the fate of how it surrounds families and broken homes. Nicky Scarfo and Enrico Riccobene will one day share the same fate of dying in prison after both of them have faced several RICO charges and be sentenced to prison for the rest of their lives. Each of them will lose a family member of taking their own lives and will lose friends and family members as a result of their faction of war. Enrico's father, Mario Sonny Riccobene, would outlive the war. However, he became an informant and turned against his own brother, Harry the Hunchback Riccobene. After convicting his own brother in jail and was able to walk free, he did miss the style of the life. When he decided to go back into his old criminal days, the criminal underworld has no short-term memory, as you can see here based on these reports.
It happened at about 7:10 last night. Patrons of the Brooklawn Diner noticed a car in the parking lot, its engine racing red hot and smoke pouring from it.
Nobody wanted to go really up close because the car was like smoking and making a lot of noise.
And the underneath of it was red? Like
it was red. It was red because the guy's foot was in the accelerator. So I don't know how long he was in there.
Inside the station wagon was the body of a man, his head bent forward. He had been shot in the head. Bullet casings were found at the scene, and today investigators returned to search for the gun, but none was found. The man's driver's license was reportedly issued in North Carolina. Police have a tentative identification, but have not yet released it.
"60-year-old Mario Sonny Riccobene, a one-time member of the Bruno Scarfo organized crime family, has been identified as the man murdered last night in the parking lot of the Brooklawn Diner. Riccobene had been shot several times in the head as he sat in this parked station wagon. The driver's side window shattered by gunfire. Riccobene's foot on the accelerator, the engine running red hot.
Given the circumstances of the killing, we are obviously investigating an organized crime connection.
Riccobene had been in the federal witness protection program from 1984 until '89, when, according to the FBI, he was kicked out for habitually violating security procedures. Riccobene returned to live in rural Gloucester County with his elderly mother.
I have to tell you, my experience has been that some people in the witness protection program do very foolish things.
Riccobene is the half-brother of Harry the Hunchback Riccobene, who is serving time for the 1982 murder of Frank Monte. In '84, Sonny Riccobene began cooperating with police against other mobsters, including his half-brother, and at that time entered witness protection. Last night's murder here in Brooklawn came 3 weeks after another murder in Audubon, New Jersey. In that case, a reputed West Coast gang enforcer, Rod Colombo, was shot in the head as he sat in a parked car.
We're looking at the similarities, but we have no reason other than those circumstantial similarities to think that they're connected at this point.
While Riccobene was no longer in the federal witness protection program, law enforcement officials kept tabs on him. They knew where he was. Obviously, Riccobene's enemies also knew where to find him. I'm Kathy Gandolfo, Channel 6 Action News, Camden, New Jersey.
Mauro Riccobene would be buried along with his son and his wife, as you can see here in this photo. Riccobene would pass away in December of 1983. Mauro Riccobene would pass away in the year of 1993. And Angelina, Mario's wife and Enrico's mother, would pass away in the year of 2010. And all three of these family members are buried besides each other in the whole Riccobene family plot. Alongside them will be also Harry the Hunchback Riccobene with his family members and their parents. This store back in the 1980s used to be called Something Sweet. It was once owned by Gary James Tavella, who at the time was 34 years old, and he and his wife co-owned the store. However, as much as this may be a sweet South Philadelphia store, it has gained a lot of infamy for one huge deception that happened in the year of 1984. Here at this location, history was made. The Philadelphia crime family captain, or caporegime, Salvatore Salvi Testa, lost his life on September 14, 1984, at this establishment. Before we go in depth about this mob hit, let us provide you the backstory to why and how this mob hit took place. Salvatore Salvi Testa was known to be a loyal soldier in the Philadelphia crime family. He was the son of the Philadelphia crime boss, Philip Chickenman Testa. His father would rule the city of Philadelphia's criminal underworld for less than a year after his untimely demise resulted in an explosion underneath his porch of his own home. His successor, Nicodemo, little Nicky Scarfo, who was Salvatore's actual godfather, would take the reign of the ruling city of Philadelphia. Under Scarfo's orders, Salvatore Testa was allowed to whack all the members who were involved on the hit of his father, Philip Testa. These members were Frank Chicky Narducci and Rocco Marinucci. Narducci and Marinucci will be taken out in brutal street fashion in the city. The only ones who escaped this brutal fallout was Peter Casella and Theodore Ted DiPetro. Peter Casella was banned from the city of Philadelphia by the commission. The commission is the boss of the 5 families within New York. Casella was allowed to live the rest of his life after giving up Frank Chicky Narducci and Rocco Marinucci as the members who were part of the conspiracy taking out Philip Testa. As for Theodore Ted DiPetro, he turned himself in to the authorities after hearing about the brutal slayings of Narducci and Marinucci. Salvatore Testa avenged his father after taking out the conspirators who were not so lucky. Afterwards, Testa's boss Nicky Scarfo was at war with Harry the Hunchback Riccobene since Riccobene refused to pay a street tax for doing illegal activities. Riccobene and Scarfo were arrested during their feud and eventually led to jail. As the war was brewing, Salvatore Testa was the captain of Scarfo's team, and he fought against Riccobene's faction of men. Salvatore Testa will also create his own crew within the Philadelphia crime family called the Young Executioners. This would consist of the Narducci brothers, Philip and Frank Narducci Jr., Joseph Joey Punch Pungatore, and the Grande brothers, Joseph Joey Grande and Salvatore Wayne Grande. Testa almost lost his arm after the shooting from Riccobene loyalists Joseph Padula and Victor De Luca. Federal prosecutor Louis Pacini had made this statement about Salvatore Testa's participation in Nicky Scarfo and Harry Riccobene's war.
The person who really took control and the leadership with respect to that war on behalf of Scarfo was really Sal Testa.
He thought he was going to get killed.
Walks in when he's got the gun hidden here, gives him the shake, pats him down,
On the contrary, he did not really suspect too much of his own best friend, Joseph Joey Pungatore, and therefore he would be the perfect candidate to betray his own best friend due to the threats of the Scarfo regime. Now we will take you to what the candy store of what it looks like today. In 1984, this candy store was called Something Sweet. This was the perfect hangout and social environment for the young executioners. Joey Pungatore had lured his best friend Salvatore Testa to this candy store. Pungatore had told Testa that he had a gambling and debt issue to resolve with the Grande brothers. Inside the store was Joseph Joey Grande and Salvatore Wayne Grande. Salvatore Wayne Grande was also the same man who tried to whack Harry the Hunchback Riccobene. He knew he let Scarfo down, and this time he knew he had to reassure him that he can get the job done. At this moment, Salvatore Testa still grew leery about his surroundings. He first shakes the hand of Salvatore Wayne Grande and then pats him down just for his own reassurance. But unbeknownst to him, Salvatore Wayne Grande has a gun hidden underneath a sofa. As Testa turned his back against Salvatore Wayne Grande, he then proceeds to shake hands with Joey Grande, and then that's when Salvatore Wayne Grande lets him have it. He then pulls the trigger and shoots the back of Salvatore Testa in the back of the head. Pungatore, the Grande brothers both witnessed Testa falling down on his knees, being mortally wounded. And just for his own reassurance, Salvatore Wayne Grande pumps another bullet in the back of Testa's head, reassuring that the execution was solidified. The young captive soldier was now gone. He would slowly pass away in a matter of minutes. As you can see from the back of this candy store, we will show you in the footage, this is where Nick the Crow Caramandi, Charles White, or Charles Ianich had helped get the body out of the store. We will also let you hear from Nick the Crow Caramandi about how the execution takes place. As you will hear from this video, we will let you hear from his perspective as we show you the video proceeding.
For the murder. On the pretext of straightening out a gambling debt, Pungatore took Salvi Testa to a meeting at this candy store on South Philly's Passyunk Avenue. Waiting inside was Salvatore Wayne Grande, the same hitman who tried and failed to Harry the Hunchback Riccobene in a phone booth.
It's an empty store. Salvi walks in. Wayne's got the gun hidden here. Gives him the shake. Pass him down. And Salvi turns around for a minute to face Joe Punch. He shoots him in the head.
Salvi Testa never saw it coming. He was dead in a matter of minutes.
He laid there for 7 hours. Later that night, me, Charlie, and another fellow go get the body. We wrap him. It's full of blood in this store.
Removing the body was tricky. Salvi Testa was a big man, 6 feet 2 inches tall, and weighed more than 200 pounds.
It was pretty heavy. So what I did, I got a kid. I gave him a signal to put the car in the middle of the street and open up the hood so no cars could get down while we take the body out, so in case a cop is passing by, you know. And threw him in the truck of the car and drove him to Jersey and just threw him on the side of the road.
Another successful hit for Scarfo's assassins. But Testa's murder was also the beginning of the end for Nicky Scarfo. By killing one of the most admired wise guys in the Philly mob, Scarfo had finally gone too far.
That sent a signal, too, to the organization and to the guys who had been around for a long time. If Scarfo can kill Salvi Testa, he can kill anybody.
Even veteran hitman Nicky the Crow Caramandi, who had helped eliminate Salvi Testa, was haunted by Testa's death.
It killed me. I used to get nightmares. I used to wake up screaming. I loved the guy. There was just a fondness that I grew about him, and he used to love me.
Nicky Scarfo, along with many members of his entourage, would serve many years in prison. Scarfo would later die in prison after serving his life sentence. Some of his members are still alive after being released after so many years of incarceration. But those who are unfortunate, like Salvatore Testa, did not get a chance to leave to see the next day on September 14, 1984. He is still beloved to many people in the city of Philadelphia, and in the world of organized crime, he is still one of the most beloved figures, and he's been dubbed as the crown prince of the Philadelphia mob. This is the tragic story of Salvatore Testa. Welcome everyone to Infinitely Productions. In this video, we'll be covering over Joseph Skinny Joey Merlino's reaction to the mob hit on Frankie Flowers D'Alfonso. For those who are not familiar with either party, Skinny Joey Merlino is a podcaster and is an entrepreneur when it comes to the cheese stick business. He has one in South Philadelphia near the sports complex and also one in Wildwood, New Jersey. He also has a business partner and co-host named Little Snuff, and their podcast is called The Skinny with Joey Merlino and Little Snuff. They recently put out an episode full, and usually most of their episodes that you want to see exclusive content is on their Patreon. If you're interested in watching their Patreon, make sure you click on the link in the description so you can get access to it if you want to see more exclusive content. They recently posted an episode on 127, which is something they have done a couple of months ago. This is in regards to Frankie Flowers D'Alfonso, as you can see on the right hand side of the thumbnail. For those who are not familiar, Frank Flowers D'Alfonso was a reputed associate of the Philadelphia crime family and a close confidant of former boss Angelo Bruno. Flowers was gunned down in a gangland-style execution in South Philadelphia on July 23, 1985, after refusing to pay the street tax under the orders of mob boss Nicodemo, Lil Nicky Scarfo. This slaying had really struck a chord within the organized crime family. After the untimely demise of Angelo Bruno, there became an internal conflict war to who would be the leader of the Cosa Nostra in Philadelphia. And then those who were associated with Bruno or those who were involved in Bruno's murder. Therefore, there became a huge bloodbath, especially during the 1980s. The slaying of D'Alfonso, who was 55 years old at the time, when he was ambushed, was shot 5 times near his house to light a cigarette on the street corner near the Italian market. And as far as the conviction, that had brought Scarfo and a lot of his associates, which included Joseph Ligambi, were tried and initially convicted of the murder in 1989. However, there were acquittals. Those convictions were overturned by an appeal court in 1992 due to the prosecutorial misconduct during closing arguments. Subsequent retrials led to acquittals, including Ligambi's in 1997. Now, as you see from this podcast, The Skinny with Joey Merlino, they have a lawyer named Nick Mantasani. So you'll be hearing him going over the legal aspects to what happened during the Frankie Flowers D'Alfonso hit. In the meantime, we're just going to show you how Skinny Joey Merlino reacts to how he looks at Frankie D'Alfonso's picture and image, especially due to his appearance was at the time in the 1980s.
That's falsely created by the news. All right, and whether that's true or not, I don't know. But nevertheless, at some point, Frankie Flowers gets killed. All right, so let's put up the Frankie Flowers mugshot so everybody can see what he looks like. And you'll see back in the day, they had those old placards there that give you sort of your old occupation. So it says common gambler.
He was fucking ugly. What the fuck?
How old was he in that picture?
Fuck do I know?
He must have been in
Looks
his
108.
40s, I don't know. And then let's go to the next one.
He looked 80 back then.
Let's go to the next one, which is the cartoon, I believe. And this kind of sets the story for what we're going to talk about. So what we have is essentially, you know, a murder that happens in 1985. All right, you have a subsequent prosecution of all of these individuals. Let's go ahead and read the names. And this is what struck me as a defense lawyer as well, is that they prosecuted 9 guys for this murder.
Okay.
All right, so you got the 9 guys on trial, and then you have the 2 guys who apparently are involved in it as well, but of course are cooperating with the government. So 11 people to carry out 1 murder. So in this picture here, you've got, you know, apparently Scarfo in blue saying, "You owe me money." And then you've got Frankie Flowers over there with the yellow shirt saying, "I ain't paying you anything." But on the left corner, you've got the newspaper article, "Bruno gone, Flowers rises." And so the Philadelphia Daily News, Joe, you know about them.
Them motherfuckers.
They wrote some articles essentially trying to say that Frankie Flowers D'Alfonso was the man in charge of Philadelphia, which, you know, by all of my research was not even close to being true, like not at all. So I don't know how they would have been so negligent in printing something like that, but they did. And nevertheless, the prosecutors sort of rode with it and used it as a major point of the defense theory.
So they create all these stories like they still do.
So the motive in theory at trial is that Scarfo wanted money, Flowers wouldn't pay. Flowers was getting some notoriety in the newspaper that Scarfo resented, and so there was this animosity there in conjunction with the money that was owed, and that was the motive for the murder.
Okay.
So you've got all of these individuals who are tried. You've got Mr. Scarfo himself, you've got Francis Iannarella, Joe Lagambi, your father, Salvatore Merlino, Philip Narducci, Frank Narducci, Nick Milano, Eugene Milano, who ends up testifying and becoming a rat, and then Lawrence Merlino. So you've got several guys who are part of the original defendant crew, and what's unique in this case and what really causes a major reversal of the conviction is that the prosecutors had the gall and the guts, the chutzpah, to try and get Eugene Milano to cooperate. Now, he's one of the defendants at trial, so for folks to understand how this works, somebody's murdered, there's a prosecution, there's arrest warrants, right? And they go out and they get the people and they arrest them, and then they bring them to court, and now you've got this case that's up and running and eventually set for trial. And Joe knows about going to trial. You prepare for trial well in advance, weeks in advance, months in advance.
And then you have it, as you can see, Merlino's really being very nonchalant about the whole mob hit that occurred on Frankie Flowers during the 1980s, and then also we'll be going over more depth details about Mantasani narrating about what happened to Frankie Flowers, since this was a daylight mob hit, and therefore you're going to see some of the old archives from what the hit like during the 1980s, which we'll show you in the background, and then we'll be showing you what it like in today's time in the 2020s.
Still on top?
Oh, certainly. We describe him as a very significant associate, a major associate, who was primarily involved in both legitimate business activity and some illegitimate business activity that the mob was behind. Gambling, for one, would be the illegitimate side. Loan sharking.
Today, Philadelphia detectives combed the area near the scene of the reputed South Philadelphia mobster's murder. Police have eyewitnesses and murder weapons have been found, but solving this crime will be tough, they tell me. The Delfonso family priest refused to talk to me on camera as he paid a quick visit to the home of the slain underworld figure. These kinds of scenes have been played out so many times in South Philadelphia in the 80s, it is like an old gangster movie. After more than 20 South Philly mob murders in the last 5 years, the people in this neighborhood are hardly shocked by the murder of Frankie Flowers. But some are quite surprised today. They thought the gang war was over for now. Some neighbors did not want their faces seen on television.
I thought it was done.
Well, it's been pretty quiet the last couple of years, the last year or so. Been quiet around here. Never expected that to happen.
The neighbors were looking and whispering, but business and life were relatively normal near the 9th Street Market today. All with whom we talked tell me they will remember Frankie Flowers as a nice, quiet man, the operator of this modest flower shop he inherited from his father. But police for years had that shop under surveillance. The Crime Commission considered Frankie Flowers an international illegal gambling figure. Vernon Odom, Channel 6 Action News in South Philadelphia.
Still there?
Yeah.
A lot of people around. So this was in broad daylight, and so you've got the crime scene here. You can see the corner store. You can see the blood. So he's killed sort of on the corner of an intersection, right in the middle of town. The Italian market's nearby. There's going to be a lot of people around. So that's the crime scene photo from the trial.
And there was no witnesses, no...
Yeah, you can take that. So one of the things that's interesting about this case is it started off as a death penalty case. And so any lawyer who's facing a death penalty case, a death penalty jury, has to take a bunch of different things into consideration. Number one is that the jurors, they got the pitchforks out on the death penalty case because they're thinking that the facts must be the worst of the worst. This must be the worst kind of case the prosecutors can bring if they're seeking the death penalty. Well, what happened in the first trial was that the evidence was not strong enough, and the judge tossed that consideration from the jury. All right, because it just didn't meet the legal threshold. Judges are allowed to do that. They're allowed to toss charges. They're allowed to take away the death penalty if they don't think that the evidence is sufficient enough to get to that point in some jurisdictions. So in Philadelphia, they're allowed to do that, and that's what this judge did. But you have a jury that's now been prejudiced and kind of poisoned, so to speak, about the nature of a death penalty case, and so you kind of have people who are more willing to convict, in my opinion, as a defense lawyer, on a death penalty jury than you would otherwise.
Yeah, if they're going to kill you, they'll send you to jail for life. They got no problem fucking giving you electric chair. You think they're going to worry about sending you to jail for life?
Yeah. So the aggravating factors that warranted a jury trial, allegedly, according to the prosecution, the state of Philadelphia, was the fact that there was some mug shots, so everybody can see what he looks like. And you'll see back in the day, they had those old placards there that give you sort of your old occupation. So it says common gambler.
He was fucking ugly. What the fuck?
How old was he in that picture?
Fuck do I know?
He must have been in
Looks
his
108.
40s. I don't know. And then let's go to the next one.
He looked 80 back then.
Let's go to the next one, which is the cartoon, I believe. And this kind of sets the story for what we're going to talk about. So what we have is essentially, a murder that happens in 1985. All right, you have a subsequent prosecution of all these individuals. Let's go ahead and read the names. And this is what struck me as a defense lawyer as well, is that they prosecuted 9 guys for this murder.
Okay.
All right, so you got the 9 guys on trial, and then you have the 2 guys who apparently are involved in it as well, but of course are cooperating with the government. So 11 people to carry out 1 murder. So in this picture here, you've got, apparently Scarfo in blue saying, "You owe me money." And then you've got Frankie Flowers over there with the yellow shirt saying, "I ain't paying you anything." But on the left corner, you've got the newspaper article, "Bruno gone, Flowers rises." And so the Philadelphia Daily News, Joe, you know about them.
Them motherfuckers.
They wrote some articles essentially trying to say that Frankie Flowers D'Alfonso was the man in charge of Philadelphia, which, by all of my research, was not even close to being true, like not at all. So I don't know how they would have been so negligent in printing something like that, but they did. And nevertheless, the prosecutors sort of rode with it and used it as a major point of the defense theory.
So they create all these stories like they still do.
So the motive in theory at trial is that Scarfo.
A few characters I want to show you, just curious to know what kind of reaction we're going to get. What do you think about when you see his picture here, Frankie Flowers D'Alfonso?
Okay, now Frankie Flowers. And my uncle gave him a lot of chances. He had the closed circuit TV with the boxing, and made a ton of money. And my uncle wanted his end, and he kept telling him, and he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't pay.
He wouldn't do it.
He wouldn't pay. So we beat him up bad, but he put him in the hospital for a few months. And when he came out, he still didn't pay. So they killed him.
When you say beat him up bad, he stays in the hospital for a few months. What do you mean beat him up bad?
Beat him up. We broke everything in his body. I think Salvi and Gino beat him with iron pipes.
With the intention of killing him or just bringing him
My
pain?
uncle told him, yeah, make sure you kill him.
Okay.
Beat him up bad, but if he dies, he dies. That's how it was. But he lived, and when he woke up, he said he thought he got hit by a truck. Naturally, he didn't say anything.
Why do you think he didn't still come and say, "Okay, let me work with you"?
I guess he wanted the money. I don't know. He didn't want to give up his money, yeah.
The Frankie Flowers mob hit was really unprecedented, especially during that time. As we mentioned before, this did cause a lot of convictions when it came to many Philadelphia mobsters or associates that was involved in the hit. And there became other different repercussions, especially when it came to acquittals that include Joseph Joe Legambi, which will be doing his life story momentarily. And there you have it. We'll be coming over more different mob hits. If there's any recommendations that you have for us, please let us know in the comment section down below. We would like to hear from you, the audience. This is Infleet Production. Stay tuned for more content.
Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and check out more of our content. Feel free to give your feedback and suggestions on what we should do next in the comments. This is Infinite Lee Productions. We love ya.